Thanks for staying with us. So, today marks exactly 1 year after the gruesome murder of George Floyd in the United States that sparked the Black Lives Matter in the U.S. that went on to the whole rest of the world. So we ran into an article by Professor Yomi Fawehinmi when he was able to articulate some lessons we could learn, especially workplace lessons we could learn from that gruesome murder that happened a year ago. And it was interesting for us to invite him over to share with us his thoughts on what can we learn from the unprofessional manner in which the entire incident happened, from when George Floyd went to the shop to buy a pack of cigarettes to the point where the police was called because they thought he had a fake $20 bill, and then he was arrested and then killed. Joining us right now is Professor Yomi Fawehinmi. Good morning, sir. Are you there?
Good morning. How are you today?
Yeah, it's always good to have you on the show. So we saw the article and we thought it was pretty interesting. Could you just tell us your thoughts on this and the fact that there's so many things we can learn from that experience that happened a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, it's been it was a sad one year ago. I mean, like I wrote in the article, it was just a regular day. People did everything they could. And somebody went to a store and gave somebody a $20 bill. And the person that received the $20 bill suspected that the bill was fake. Now, that's an issue for the workplace. I mean, so how do you suspect currency without use of technology? So that's another thing we can learn. Let's stop raising people let's stop building business models on suspicion. So there could have been a technology, there could be a simple light that could have shown whether the dollar was fake or not, but that wasn't provided. And this person felt this dollar bill was fake, but like he gave a testimony in court, he said, well, he liked the interaction he had with this guy, and he decided that, okay, even if it's fake, I'm willing to pay for my pocket for it, right? But then decided that he was going to tell the supervisor, and the supervisor tells him to go and meet the man outside, and he went to meet the man outside, and the man said, well, bill is not wrong, the bill is not fake, and then went back inside and told the supervisor he wasn't able to retrieve it. Then another worker, who was not part of that transaction, which is another workplace issue about delegation of authority and responsibility, called the police. Now, the police arrived, and the conversation went between them and this man, who we now know is George Floyd, and then another set of policemen came in, and they tried to arrest him, and in the process, one of them, Derek Chauvin, put his leg on his neck for excess of 9 minutes, and in the process, George Floyd got killed. Now, the issues there is the fact that, one, the incident started in the workplace. This was a regular shop. It could have been your studio, it could have been my office, right? But there was the lack of effective management that led to an escalation. That's on the side of the shop. But there's also on the side of the police and the professionalism expected, wherein somebody chose to demonstrate abuse of office and force and power and kill the man in the process. One of the things that the courts showed clearly was that this man was trained on how to restrain people, but refused to accept the training when it came to the point of deployment. So that's part of the lessons there. But isn't the question we need to ask ourselves is, we just need to remember that we're human beings. We just need to be kinder than before. Let me tell you what I did last year, myself and my sons. We decided to do an experiment, what it takes to kneel down for that long. Now, for people who kneel down regularly, it may not be a big deal. So the three of us decided that we're going to kneel down for the number of minutes Derek Chauvin knelt on the neck of George Floyd, just to be that wicked for long. After the third or fourth minute, my legs started to ache me. Actually, by the third and fourth minute, I had to change my legs to the other side. Just for you to know the amount of anger, wickedness, hate, racial bigotry that made that man to stay that long and kill the man in the process, despite his plea for his life.
Right. So I hear that, and I thought the article was pretty interesting, because I never thought of those elements of workplace unprofessionalism that we saw. However, bringing the story home, you know, it's been a whole year that this happened, and the fact that many other countries around the world kind of jumped on this Black Lives Matter. Do you think anything has really changed across the world since that death that happened and the fact that Derek Chauvin was actually convicted finally? Do you think it brought some kind of succor to the world, and do you feel that going forward these kind of things might reduce?
Yeah, I think things have changed. I mean, people may not agree it has changed as radically they want, but sometimes when you want to change society, you need to be gradual. Some things don't just change by the snap of the finger. One of the most important things is the role of the supervisor of Derek Chauvin. Now, in the US, most murders by police goes unpunished. The policeman gets there. But for the second time in recent times, a police chief is not like a DPO, but it looks more like a commissioner of police, came to court to testify against the staff. Derek Chauvin's direct supervisor came to court to testify against this policeman. Now, those are two very significant things that we have not seen in a long time. Actually, only two police chiefs in the history of the US have testified against a policeman. Interestingly, it's the same police chief. Now, so that's a change. So the police is accepting that they're doing something that is wrong. One other thing that also changed is the fact that states have now introduced laws against that chokehold oath. I mean, before that time, there were only 3 states that has a law against, but now we have over 20 states. And that's on the side of the police. But inside of corporate Nigeria, corporate Africa, corporate US, and it extends to many parts of the world now, there's now an increased consciousness of the need to ensure that indeed Black lives matters. So one of the direct things you realize that more organizations are having targets around the number of Black people they have in leadership. Young people are having targets, and it's also reflected on women. So in today's world, corporate world today, if you're a woman and you're Black, you are having a higher chance of getting into some position just because of more considerations for gender and for Blackness. And of course, let us not forget it. All of this happened in the build-up to the US election. In the US election, there was a woman on the ticket, and who was also Black, and that was Kamala Harris. And there was a sense in which the poor-handling of the Trump administration, who was Republican, made more people feel this is the time. So some people felt one of the ways to respond to the poor handling of this situation is the fact that the Republican didn't do the right thing, and some people did like a protest vote. So that's another change. So I'm trying to show changes in policing, change in lawmaking, change in business and employment, and also change in politics.
Okay.
Let's take the simplest in the order of events that you have outlined for workplace lessons. The very first event was a $20 bill exchange between the deceased and the shop. I think it's receptionist or someone at the shop. Let's localize what should be done if it was a Nigerian situation and how that can help us.
I mean, you see, sometimes in life, one of my favorite quotes is the one that says that great doors swing on small hinges. A simple fluorescent light colored blue will have shown whether that bill was fake or not. So the question is that anybody who has interactions and has to receive cash, of course, one of the beauties of life and one of the things all of us start to explore is to use technology. So if a POS transaction was done in that instance, maybe we would not have had this situation. So for those of us who have businesses and there is cash, please ensure you have a POS and people can pay and you can reduce the risk of fake dollar bills. But if there's a reality of a fake dollar bills, just introduce a little technology that can help the person to detect it. And let the person detect at the point of collection. One of the things that happened in that case was this guy collected, suspected it, accepted it, and he said so in court that he decided that even if the bill was fake, he's willing to pay on behalf of this guy because they had an interaction and he just loved the guy. Now, and then this guy has gone with the secret he went to buy before they tried to retrieve it, which again shows a lack of process in dealing with issues. So you suspected an infringement, you accepted the dollar bill, the guy collected the goods, went out, then you now went out after him. I think that was a very risky behavior that showed a lack of process and protection for the employee, because in that process, you exposed him, you left your shop to run. And I'm sure you have seen that happen before in Lagos, right? You go to a market and you see a girl running out or a boy running after one person and say, oh, guy, you did not give us this. It's a risk that is not worth it.
Okay. Okay, sir. So I want to bring it back to the Nigerian context. We naturally are a people that the younger ones are not allowed to challenge the older people. So, and we find a way to bring it into our businesses, our companies, our organizations. So you have your boss who is naturally abusive, and you do not have a right to challenge that boss, because in the African context, the younger can never be right against the elder. How do you think we can begin to change this narrative to help us, follow the guidelines of working in civility in our organizations?
Thank you. Very great question, Ma. I just wanted to balance this so that we can actually talk. Many times when we refer to the African culture, I always ask that question: is there anything called the African culture? Because it's a subset of cultures, and it's also a contrast. I'm Yoruba, for example. We have a saying in Yoruba land that "Omodegbon agbagbon la fi dalefe." Ife is the origins of the Yoruba by tradition, and what that proverb says is that town became cosmopolitan and became important because of the wisdom of the young and the old. So that means for the Yorubas, there is a need for a mix of wisdom of Benudake and Sorosoke generation. It's not a contest. And when we say you can't challenge, we have sayings that shows you can. What the culture teaches is how you challenge or you confront. And it's not just an African issue. Of course, you remember that in this Derek Chauvin case, and one of the things I tried to highlight in the article, there were 3 other officers. All of them were junior to Derek Chauvin, and 2 of them raised concerns. One of them first said, let's check the pulse. The guy refused to accept. The other one says, let's turn him over. Because in the training of a policeman, when you put somebody on the chocolate and he's lying face down like George Floyd was doing, the training says, turn him on the side, right? Anybody who is a mother here knows the implication of turning a child on side. Most sudden deaths of children happens when they are face down. So that's why you have turning. One of the junior police officers talked to this guy and said, let's talk. And the guy refused. So it's not an African problem. It's an hierarchical culture of power. Cultures that have a high power distance don't know how to do it. But one of the things I've come to realize that there are now organizations that empower employees to speak up. So if you work in an organization where people are abusive, try and speak up. But if the culture does not allow it, I think it's safer for you to leave, because those 3 officers have already been indicted for that crime, and they'll likely be going to jail for keeping quiet. So the question is, the first solution to not be in an abusive relationship is not to enter it. Because every time people ask questions, so what do you do when you are in an abusive relationship, whether it's a marriage or a workplace? The first thing is that don't ever enter. You saw an application, ask question what kind of organization it is. Don't enter into it, because there's no need for you to demonstrate skill at that point.
Thank you very much, Prof. It's always a great pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate your contributions. So we're going to go on a break in a moment, but before I run off, I would like to, it's a year, and everybody participated in the Black Lives Matter. In your own personal view, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Tokwe, you've not said anything so far, but what do you think we've learned, any lessons we've learned from that experience as a Black race? Do you think we have more value for ourselves? Yes, there's a lot of oppression in our history. Are we still oppressing ourselves, or what lessons can we learn from that experience of George Floyd?
Okay, so from the George Floyd experience, the lesson I would always learn is the fact that, and I think is the importance of technology and capturing the moment. I think that in Nigeria, we can do a whole lot more in capturing the moment, because if that moment wasn't captured, we will not have justice. The reason there's a similitude of justice in George Floyd's case was because somebody took his phone, people around captured the injustice. Yeah. Of course, we can say, oh, you should have intervened, try to fight, but there was a power play that... Yeah. But citizen journalism is a very, very important lesson that we can deploy in Nigeria to help us fight justice against the same issue, which is brutality within our country. That's one. Another thing that I learned that I would say has been a lesson for me is that protesting is not a solution to the problem. We cannot solve Black Lives Matter by protesting. We cannot bring dignity to the history of black people by protesting. We bring it by empowering ourselves. So education, economic empowerment is the best way out of any of all this, oh, I'm oppressed, I'm not doing well. How powerful are you? They don't oppress you when you're powerful. So get yourself empowered, get educated, be financially good.
I think I'll end on that note. Thank you very much, Let's go on a break. When we come back, we'll move on to our health topics. Stay with us, we'll be right back.